Can't.
There you go. I see it.
Yep, looks like we're still going. Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right. So thank you for reading my bio and just letting everyone know just a little bit about Mr. Langford. I chose Mr. Langford as instead of saying Keith Langford because the majority of the students, your children, your kids, your family, they all call me Mr. Langford. So that was why I said that. But thank you very much, Ms. Baker, for reading that bio. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So a lot of times, people in the community and even staff members are asking me a question as it relates to family and community engagement, and like, what does that mean? And so if you ever see the abbreviated FACE, so that's what FACE represents, family and community engagement. Now, the national definition for family and community engagement, as you see here, um, this was this was shared with me um, as I attended some coursework at Harvard University. And so the national definition of family engagement is a full, equal, and equitable partnership amongst families and educators and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through post-secondary experiences, including college, career readiness, life skills, and so forth. So that's the overall definition of what family and community engagement means. And of course, it represents differently depending on the school district, the community that one serves. Next slide, please. All right, so my role here in Shaker, as my face role here in Shaker in the mission. So as a coordinator, it's my job to coordinate programs and develop partnerships designed to enhance, school outcomes for children and their families. I coordinate outreach activities. I act as a community liaison, and I attend as many meetings as I possibly can. Um, yeah, and as a representative for the district, a lot of times the superintendent or someone from the senior leadership team may ask me to attend a meeting on the school district's behalf, which I do that. Some of the work that I do, or the majority of the work that I do, is collaboration and partnerships with groups and organizations. And some in the community have called me the connector, if you will. Um, and so I take pride in the fact that I've had the privilege and the ability to coordinate and partner with a number of individual organizations with here in Shaker Heights. It's also part of my role to vet some of the programs and different things that come to Shaker. Some of the different programs and initiatives that some of your students may have experienced or been a part of. I have had a behind the scenes hand in vetting some of those programs. Now the mission, or the district mission, for family community engagement is still, again, it's to collaborate with groups and organizations and develop outreach activities and programs and partnerships. And so that's the overall role that I serve here in the district. And now let me just say that, when you interview for any particular job, sometimes you have to read that last line at the bottom. The last line at the bottom says, "and other duties as assigned," right? And so sometimes my role may shift, it may change within the district depending on the need. So a lot of times it is as other duties assigned. Next slide, please. So what you have here is a tiered system, and this is something that I try to follow, and in order to keep some structure, in order to keep some guidelines, as far as, you know, you can't be one person for everyone all the time, every place, pre-K through 12th grade. And so I've kind of taken a model from a different school district in Boston, and they had this tiered approach. And so I kind of used that same format to kind of structure what I do here in Shaker. So what you'll notice is you'll notice tier one, tier two, and tier three. And so at the tier one level, that's your real basic level as far as engagement and involvement and sharing information and resources. So some of the things that I'll highlight in that tier one approach would be community partnerships, volunteers, the FACE Academy. Some school districts, they call it parent universities. Here we call it Family Community Engagement Academy. And then also communication, which communication is by far the most important, in my opinion, outside of building relationships and partnerships. But the communication, it has to be there. So that's the tier one approach. Tier two is where we get a little bit more into the collaboration, and then working in conjunction with your building principals. Here I see in this particular meeting, you have a few of our pre-K building principals and so forth on this call. So I appreciate you guys inviting them and having them to be a part of this. But anyway, a lot of what I do is I collaborate with the different building administrators. Again, that's pre-K through 12th grade on a lot of different initiatives and then building action plans. Collaborating with the different intervention teams, the behavior coaches. I do that on a regular basis as well. I also, it's not listed here, but I also work with our attendance team, um, as far as, really trying to make sure that in this day and age with COVID, trying to make sure that our students are logging in and attending class remotely. So again, this tier two here is I provide resources and support to families as needed. Student and family advocate. There are a lot of times where I am at the table or I'm attending meetings as an advocate for some of those that may not be able to quite advocate for themselves in some manner or some capacity. And so, I too sit at that table as an advocate for students, and as an advocate for families. Now, the tier three approach for my role here in the Shaker district gets a little more involved. This is where we're providing, like real specific resources and support as needed. In some situations, and typically it's a case by case scenario, case by case basis. So, for example, if we have a family that has a fire and now they have to relocate, and maybe they've lost their furniture, their clothes, maybe they need food. In those emergency cases, sometimes I am brought in to assist and to help with housing and again, clothes and food and shelter and so forth. So that's one of your more extreme types of situations. But so this is just a tiered approach, tier one, tier two, and tier three, just to kind of give you an idea of how we kind of keep some structure to the family engagement here in Shaker. Next slide. All right, so priority areas of focus for the 2020 and 2021 school year. And so I want to kind of pause here just real quickly, and I want to say that we have a superintendent, Dr. David Glasner, who understands that our students and our families here in Shaker, he understands that sometimes they need a little bit more than what we can give them in the buildings and in the classroom. And so he specifically said to me,
and then I left and picked up.
He specifically said to me, moving into this particular school year with the pandemic, to focus on families, focus on our most vulnerable students and vulnerable families. We want to make sure that they have what they need so that we can remove any barriers to education. And that's really been the focus for 2020. Now going into 2021, we're going to stick with that same area of focus, but we're going to definitely include more so the strategic plan of 2.3. And that's really working with our families who have historically been marginalized, um, and just really, again, I had mentioned before that communication is a huge part of what we do as far as engaging with families. Two-way communication is extremely important. So that's something that as a district we're continuing to work on. And then again, collaborating with our community partners. So that's an area of focus. And definitely upholding and supporting continued efforts as far as fostering equality, innovation, and imagination. So, we're an IB district, and I mean, my son Kyle, who graduated last year, Kyle was actually in the IB program at the high school, and so I truly believe that the imagination of our kids is extremely important, and that's something we need to kind of focus on. And then lastly, as far as the focus, really, again, breaking down barriers, supporting families and students as much as possible to eliminate racial issues that are in the classroom and then outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. All right, so on this particular site, these are just a few supports and some partnerships that I kind of listed. So one of the supports falls up under, again, what some school districts call parent university, but here in Shaker we call it the Face Academy, and I'm very pleased and happy with that. We've had great success with the Family Community Engagement Academy. These are sessions where we have surveyed the community, or we've had certain parents or individuals or even staff that'll say this is something that we believe would be important to share. And so we've hosted different sessions as educational sessions for our families. Then moving into COVID-19, we weren't able to come together in large groups. So we shifted, right? So you have to kind of, you got to be able to be flexible. So we shifted and created what we call the Face Academy at home during COVID. And so, that was really working with families on understanding how to log into Google, how to use Google, what is Google Classroom, what is this remote learning all about? And so that was a huge learning curve for everyone. And Face Academy at home had a huge part in providing that level of education for our families. Also supporting our volunteers, and here in our district, we have a volunteer policy. Uh, all students are, and that those that are volunteering time.
Yes, I had approximately 5 billion hours to work on stuff today. So
Where are you going?
lifting. I have so much
Lifting
time
now?
on these days that I worked on stuff that's not due
What?
into like a week.
God, who are you?
I know. It's
Everybody
so boring.
That they're muted.
There's nothing to do.
I think somebody needs to mute their microphone.
What happened?
Are you calling Eric?
I'm not. He's calling me.
That's what happened. You gotta click the.
Steve,
If everybody could go ahead and mute their mics, that would be great.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to offer the Face Academy at home session again, as far as muting your line, doing a Zoom meeting. So anyway, I just wanted to say, as far as the volunteer registration is concerned, we have a policy where we want to make sure that all of our students are safe at all times. And so it's extremely important that if you're volunteering with a student and you're outside of the presence of a staff member and you're with the student, that you have a background check in the form of fingerprints, which are free in our HR department. This way we can just make sure, again, that our students are around, people that have gone through a background check and that they're okay to be around students. Also, we have a FACE resource page. It's on the shaker.org website, and you can find it up under departments, and you just look for family community engagement. And then there's a Facebook page there. I'm sorry, there's a FACE page there with resources. The Shaker Engagement Collaborative, this is something I'm extremely proud of when you talk about partnerships. So back in, let's see, 2000 and maybe 2017, leading into 2018, I had a few individuals meeting me in my office, and they noticed that on my wall, I just had like all these organizations and partnerships and collaborations. And individuals, and I think we counted about 80, about 87 that had some interaction with our Shaker students and Shaker families. And they were just asking me, how are you doing this? How are you connecting and communicating and building relationships with 80 some odd people? And I said, I'm doing it, but I'm not doing it well. And so we kind of stole a model from Case Western Reserve. I had attended a workshop at Case Western Reserve, and it's called ABCD, Asset-Based Community Development. And so in that model, what you do is you identify the assets in your community, and then you bring them together in a collaborative manner. And so that's what we were able to do, actually. Through the Shaker Engagement Collaborative, we were able to bring the Shaker Heights Library, the police department, the Shaker Youth Center, Belfair, the SAY program. That's just to name a few. I mean, there are so many. So we were actually able to bring them together in a collaborative manner and share information, share best practices. And it was all geared to how can we help Shaker students and how can we help the Shaker community. And there's a lot of good that has come out of that collaborative. So I'm very, very proud of that. The Shaker Heights Parent Teacher Organization, our PTO, right? I'm surprised you guys have not won an award, like a national award. Hands down, especially throughout the greater Cleveland area, different school districts will ask me, how are you guys doing what you do? And I say, it's all because of our parent teacher organization, our PTO. We have a wonderful group of parents that will come together in every building. It's not like we have one building that gets all the attention and we have one building that does all the work. All 8 of our buildings, right? As far as the PTO, you guys come together and you help to do some amazing things, right? And so I'm always thrilled and happy to be a part of anything that PTO is doing. So for example, Ms. Baker, you have mentioned just recently the MLK celebration of beloved community. What you guys don't know is the behind the scenes work behind putting that on. It was a short amount of time. We put a lot of information, a lot of effort into 14 days of learning. 14 days of learning about Martin Luther King Jr., about civil rights. I could go on for about another hour about that, but I'll stop there. But so anyway, my involvement with PTO, that's another huge partnership within the district that I'm proud of. Next slide, please. So next steps, right? So you say, okay, well, what's next? Here comes the difficult part. No one knows what's next, right? We're living through historic times. Today, for an example, I applaud you guys for the amount of people. We have 36 participants that are on this call, 36 participants that are here to listen to this guy named Keith Langford, this African-American man who lives and works in our community. And we have a very diverse group of people on this call. And again, you asked me what's next. I put in this slide, student and family support team. The reason why I put that in there is within all of our buildings, with all of our different nationalities, all the different students that we have, families that we have, staff that we have, we really need a person in each building. We really need a person that can connect with those families. The building principals can't do it by themselves. They just can't. I mean, you guys have no idea the amount of meetings and planning that these building principals go through. And then the phone calls and emails that they have to shepherd. Oh my gosh, the many fires that they put out before they become a raging issue is tremendous. So we need a person in each building that can work with students and work with families and build those relationships and be able to provide the supports that's needed. I do the best that I can being one person, but the next step is really working to identify individuals, which I believe we have, identifying individuals in each building that can provide student support and family support. So that's something that I'm really working towards. Continuing the work aligned to the district strategic plan 2.3. Really, again, working with our most marginalized families. If we haven't realized and recognized anything this year, is the fact that we have a lot of families that are in need, and they're in need in different ways. And so we want to, again, we're here as educators. We're here to provide an education to students. That's our main focus. Our main focus is to provide an education. But in doing that, we have to make sure that we reduce and eliminate as many barriers to that education as possible. And so that's a huge next step for me, is to really work with all the buildings, teachers, everyone, to see what we can do to uphold the strategic plan and reduce those barriers to some of our families and students. And then lastly, I just want to mention the National Network of Partnerships, Partnership Schools. It's abbreviated NNPS. And it's a model. Again, I attended some coursework at Johns Hopkins University for a couple of years. I continue to have an ongoing relationship with Dr. Joyce Epstein and her great work. If you guys have not researched her, I have no idea who she is. She's been like one of the trailblazers as it relates to family and community engagement for over 20 plus years. Even though family engagement is fairly new here in Shaker, I started this position, I believe it was 2016. It was January of 2016. So we haven't even hit the 5-year mark yet, right? And there are other school districts that they've been doing this for like 20 plus years. And so I have a mentor, if you will. Actually, I have a couple of mentors as it relates to family engagement, but Dr. Joyce Epstein is definitely one. I call her as needed, I email her as needed, and she gives me guidance. So we want to move forward with using her model of parents as partners, and in conjunction with the Ohio statewide Family Engagement Center out of Columbus. They have a cohort group that they're accepting. I forget how many school districts, but they're only accepting a limited number of school districts. And guess what? Your district was accepted. And so starting in this spring of 2021, Shaker Heights will be joining the second cohort group to participate in the NNPS model. And we will launch this starting sometime in the spring. So it starts with just meetings and understanding and structure and guidelines to prepare us for the next school year ahead. All right, next slide, please. All right, so you're asking, okay, well, NNPS, what is that? What's Mr. Langford? Who is Dr. Joyce Epstein? Well, I just put this slide in here just to kind of give you an idea of the 6 types of involvement. And this is the focus. Now, let me just say that some of these we do well already. And it's been a matter of building the capacity of others within our district in order to make these things happen. But some of the key types of involvement, again, of course, is parenting, assisting and working with parents and families on all different levels, and working with their kids in the different grade levels as well, but assisting them as needed with whatever they need to be the best parent that they possibly can be. That's number 1. Number 2, again, is the communication. Communicating with families in a way that is effective, not just sending out an email or here's a robocall, right? But really allowing not allowing, I should say, really figuring out the best way to communicate. So over the past year and a half, we've done a soft survey, if you will, with probably about 340 some odd families. And we just asked the question, what is your best method and way of communication? And the majority of our families will say that text messaging is the best way for them to receive information, not email. Everyone doesn't sit at a desk. Everyone doesn't have a computer. So everyone's not waiting for that email. But text messages, the majority of our families have a cell phone and they can receive that cell phone. And if there's a link to something you want them to view or upload or download, when they have an opportunity to get to the internet, they can do that. But text messaging is by far the best means of communication. So this, I should say, last year in 2020, our district communications department took that information and moved forward with allowing the text messaging feature to be utilized more than just emergencies only. And so that was a big step. Volunteering, number 3, type 3, volunteering, really, again, recruiting. Everyone I talk to, I ask them, especially if I find out what building they're in, I say, well, hey, do you know who your PTO president is? Or do you have a connection with PTO? How are you involved? And I encourage, I don't demand, but I encourage them to get involved, because good things happen when you get involved. Your building teachers and principals, they get to know you when you're involved. Your kids see you involved. So a lot of times when your kids see that you're involved in the school and in the education, guess what? It's a trickle down effect. The kid then gets a little more involved. Again, we want to continue to just build our volunteer program. Learning at home, involves, really making sure that our families have what they need so that they can learn at home. Making sure that they understand the curriculum, making sure that they have the supplies that they need. I would say a big part of learning at home is sometimes our families just don't understand. Homework comes home, yes, but then there's a lot more to it than homework. There's this whole navigation piece. How do you navigate through the understanding of where my kid is in the classroom, what my kid needs to learn in the classroom, and how do we get there? And so that's a part of learning at home. The decision making type 5, that decision making type is where PTO. Some school districts don't have PTO; they have what's called PTA, which is more of a national organization. But really allowing our parents and our families to be involved in the decision making process. And I know not all buildings do this, but I know that some of our buildings, they have an opportunity for parents, family members, and community members to be on different committees within the school. There's something that's called the Title I Compact, and that's something we're going to be digging into in 2021 as well, making sure that we adhere to this Title I Compact of including parents and family members and the community members in the decision making that's happening in your neighborhood school buildings. So that's a part of this NNPF model. And then lastly, type 6 is the collaboration with the community. Something that I think we do pretty well here in Shaker. It's been so recognized that I was invited to submit a proposal for the 2021 National Family Community Engagement Conference. And myself and a few others from the Shaker Engagement Collaborative, we put together a proposal. Fingers crossed that it'll be accepted. If it is accepted, we will be presenting our work on a national level. I had the opportunity to do this back in 2018. I presented at a national conference, and I blew them away with our FACE Academy. I blew them away with our cross collaboration. You wouldn't believe how in some school districts, different buildings are in such a competition that building principals don't even talk. They don't even like each other, right? At least our building principals, I believe they like each other, but at least our building principals here, they understand that it's better to work together, right? So that cross collaboration between buildings, we're still working, and I'm just being honest, and everyone knows that, Mr. Langford, I'm going to tell you how it is. We're still working at, making sure that we have cross collaboration between not just all buildings, but from a district standpoint, right? From a district level all the way down, there needs to be collaboration and partnership and understanding. And I believe we have a superintendent that understands that and gets that, and he's working through that. So I'm hopeful that that'll happen. But this is the model for the NNPS from Dr. Joyce Epstein. Next slide. All right, so here, this is where we have questions and answers, right? Hopefully I have answers to your questions. Hopefully you guys are very kind with your questions. But go right ahead. I'll take any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you so much, Keith, for your presentation today, Mr. Langford. We'll open it up to the group. Any questions that have come through the chat at all? Looks like we have one question that came through in terms of, do we need to be fingerprinted if we are working with students online in the virtual environment?
Again, that is something that, let me explain that scenario to you. So if you are working with a student and it is just an individual and the student alone, then yes, you need to be fingerprinted. But if you are working with the teacher, working with a staff member, and there's a group activity and you're volunteering in that capacity, then the answer to that question is no. But we want to really just make sure that, you know, your children, your students, our students, we want to make sure that we provide them with as much safety as possible. And cyber safety is an issue. So to answer your question, if there's an opportunity for a volunteer to be alone with a student online, then yes, that person needs to be have a background check.
As a follow-up to that, how long is the background check and fingerprinting good for?
Oh, great question. I'm glad you asked. 3 years. Fingerprints are good for 3 years. And, you know, we kind of go through the process, and some of you guys on this call may have received an email asking you to update your fingerprints. And that's because, or your background check. And that's because, you know, we have a district record. Our HR department in the past has held that particular record, but recently it has been released to Family Community Engagement, and so now we're taking over that. So if you've been fingerprinted longer than 3 years ago and you haven't received an email asking you or reminding you to have your fingerprints updated, then that's my fault, my mistake. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to shoot out some emails tomorrow, so you guys better be ready.
All right, great. So I have a question myself. So, you know, we have on the line here probably folks that are, you know, already involved with their existing PTOs or at a high level, or are looking into that. What one or two things would you say us as parents or PTO members could do to assist or better leverage FACE in your organization with our families?
So basically what you're asking is, how can you help FACE, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. So number one, you can help FACE by continuing to do what you're doing. To be quite honest with you, continuing to be involved in your building, continuing to be involved in the decision-making process, continuing to be involved in your students' educational experience. Just continuing to be engaged and being involved. That would be my number one answer, right? Because the FACE work is not about me. It's not about a person. It's not about a department. Also, I attended some classes from, I had the privilege actually to attend Harvard University. I can actually say I went to Harvard. I got the t-shirt to prove it. But so at Harvard University, over the past couple of years, what I've learned is that it is it's all about capacity building, and it's about building the capacity of others to serve, building the capacity of others to get involved. Because if it was about face, me, myself, and I, or a particular department, a lot of this work would not get done. So again, I'm just going to say, stay involved, stay engaged, participate, and be a part of the process. As far as any activities or events or anything that FACE is having, if you could share that information with others, if you could also participate, that would be great. Please feel free to email me. Oh my gosh, I have so many people that email me, text me, stop me in Heinens. By the way, I love Heinens, but I hate Heinens at the same time because I cannot go in there and get out in 5 minutes. But I have community people that always say, hey, here's a suggestion, here's an idea. Or they'll say, how can I help? And I'll say, well, this is what I'm doing, or this is what we have planned. And then they'll volunteer their time, their talents, and their efforts. So all of that to say, stay engaged, stay involved, and please share with me any ideas that you may possibly have.
Okay, great. Any other questions from the group that's on the line at this point?
Wow, you guys are really being too kind.
All right, Chris, I think I'll turn it over to you now to wrap it up and from a principal perspective for Fernway.
Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of the schools and specifically for Fernway. Like, I mean, Keith and the work that his department can do, I mean, truly the sky's the limit. I can remember years ago when I collaborated with the city, we brought a bunch of different agencies together as we are attempting to apply for what was called the 21st Century Bidders Grant. And some of that work actually ties in with the work that Keith had referenced with John Hopkins. And the reality is that we quickly recognized that we needed some kind of a position or some kind of a department or person that could help bring everybody together, right? There could be that, and literally that face, kind of that person on the ground that could work collaboratively with the city, with the school district, with other outside agencies, and really bring us together, right? And so what we can accomplish and what Keith is learning from other districts from across the country and what he's sharing that we're doing is truly benefiting both our students and students across the board. As we entered into this pandemic, I can tell you that I honestly, I reached out to Keith a number of different times, and he was the one go-to person in his department. We're able to help support some of our most at-risk families that were crashing in a big way very quickly. This environment that we're living in educationally and just living in general is really difficult, right? And it's really hard. And so he literally was kind of like the boots on the ground associated with supporting our families around their food effort, their food insecurities, with transportation, a whole host of different things. Recently, sadly, we had a situation where we lost a father of one of our students over the winter break. And honestly, before I was able to even make contact with Keith, he was already in connection with the family, providing support. His ability to have resources at his fingertips, like the United Way 211 and other things that a lot of families and even principals such as myself are not aware of, that there are supports, both financial supports as well as other social emotional type supports that can help our students and our families to pick themselves up off the ground in some of the most devastating times. And so again, Keith was there. He's had a number of conversations with this family, and I can tell you that they really truly feel supported. He works closely with our social worker. I was actually referencing Keith in his department today as I was talking to our K-4 social worker, and in terms of some of our efforts around supporting some of our families. And again, so like he referenced going to Heinens and the fact that he knows a lot of people, and that's the goal, right? I mean, the goal is for him to be one of those people that everybody trusts, everyone can go to. He's there to support you in a variety of different ways. And then lastly, with champions. So a lot of people don't realize that Keith is tied in with our champions, the before school and after school program. So he has an effort associated with supporting our families to be able to provide some current, in-school childcare. So again, what is capable with this department and what the potential is for us to be able to kind of leverage resources across our community are immense. And I just want to thank Keith for all the work that he's done to support our students and our families in Shaker Heights.
Well, thank you very much for for saying that. Well, I didn't expect you to say all that, Chris, but thank you.
That's all I have. So if there's any other questions, I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. This is being recorded, and so I'm hoping that a lot more of our families will learn all the great things and come up with ideas and share them with Keith and reach out and together, we can support our students and our families.
Let me just say it. Maybe there's someone asking a question, but they're thinking of it, but they haven't asked a question. Your building principals know how to get in contact with me. PTO knows how to get in contact with me. And I'm going to put my email in the chat. So this way, feel free to call me, email me if needed. I have a district cell phone. I'm probably going to get shot for doing this. But I want to put my cell phone number in the chat as well. So you have my email address and you have my my district cell phone. There it is.
All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this third speaker event. Good luck with the first week of back to on-site learning, everyone. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good
Keith.
night. Thank you.
Yeah.